Alright, guys, we got another fucking doozy. This one is going. I just saw the title and we had to do it. Are they engineering the apocalypse? And by they, I mean the elites. And by the apocalypse, I mean the end of the fucking world, dude. The end of time when God destroys heaven and earth and rebuilds. Are they engineering that? Can they engineer that? Let's watch.
Almost every major religion in the world today says that we are living in the last days, that we are coming towards the end of this world. We got the Kali Yuga, the Ragnarok, the last hour, the apocalypse. And Christianity is no different. We are living in the feet of clay, and soon the big rock will come smash us down, and then the great beast will grow a new horn, and that horn will be shouting the N-word at God non-stop. That's the time that we are living in right now. But what if I told you that this symbolic language used
When you hear Gabriel's trumpet sound, son, it is too late.
within the Bible is being used by people today to try and accelerate us towards the end of the world? That's a lot to take in. Now, within this video, I am going to discuss the last book of the Bible, the book of Revelation. And of course, because it's the
If you ever get a chance, and you have a chance, read the book of Revelation, dude. It is terrifying, mind-blowing. Shit is gonna get crazy before it gets better.
last book of the Bible, I have to give a spoiler warning because we're going to skip to the end. I don't want to spoil it for you. So, spoiler warning on the Bible right now.
I'm not 100% convinced they didn't add 1,000 years to the calendar to confuse everybody on the truth of God. Not convinced.
So, to begin with, I want you to imagine that you are the Apostle John. Now, this was around 1,900 years ago, and you are a very old man at this point. And because the Christians were being persecuted at the time, you have likely been exiled to a small island off the coast of Greece called Patmos. So you are an old man on a rocky, remote island in the middle of nowhere, right? And you're sitting there and you're reflecting on the past. You're thinking about the past, and you're probably wondering, it's time for me to go. I'm too old for this shit. It's time for me to die and be reunited with Jesus and my friends. Because at this point, Jesus died and was resurrected around 60 years ago, and you want to see him again. But you think that your job is done. Or I'm sorry, John, there's more stuff for you to do, right? This
Resurrected and then went back to his home in heaven. I firmly believe this.
we still need you. So John is sitting there, and suddenly he hears a noise. He hears a giant horn. He turns around, and it's Jesus. But he looks a bit different. Jesus is glowing bronze. He has fiery eyes. He has these lampshades floating around him, and he has 7 stars in his hand. And he's like, fuck. But Jesus says, John, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid, John. Calm down. So John, old man, takes a breath. Okay, I'm not afraid. And then Jesus goes, okay, now watch this. And John receives the craziest, most frightening visions anyone has ever witnessed in their life up to this point in human history. He sees the craziest shit you have ever seen. We're talking lambs with multiple eyes, beasts.
100% is the book of Revelations is the reason that I started doing psychedelics a long time ago. Is because I wanted to see what made them write these books. And dude, if you do enough of them, this all makes a lot more sense. I don't condone that. I don't do it anymore because I can't tame myself. But it makes this a lot clearer.
With multiple heads, apocalyptic visions of the future. He sees the craziest shit. He
say I can't control myself like that. And I know a lot of people who go, psychedelics aren't addictive. Blah, 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 Dude, I took acid every day for over 4 months. It was batshit crazy. And They're like, you can't even feel it if you do that. No, you stay there if you take enough. I promise you, you stay there, and reality slips away very, very quickly, and takes a very, very long time for it to come back. Just be aware before you start down that road, because I mean, it was the best high I've ever felt, and I was just like, oh, I'm doing this a lot.
He sees God himself on the throne with crazy angels with multiple eyes floating around him. He sees stuff that no old man should see on some remote island, right? I like the idea of Jesus like, John, don't be scared, but watch this. So that's very funny. Now, luckily for us, John wrote down these crazy visions within the book of Revelation. And of course, many of these visions are highly symbolic and connect to earlier parts of the Bible, like the prophecies of Daniel, so on and so forth. But these visions were of the end of the world. These visions were of the future. And because of that, many people have speculated that John was witnessing modern technology for the first time. And I want you to imagine this. You are
AI. What did I say in the last video? AI is the Antichrist. You're all gonna see, and you're gonna be like, well, he's crazy right now. And then a few years, you're gonna be like, damn, dude, that dude was right.
80, 90-year-old man from 2,000 years ago, and you are placed in the middle of a modern warfare like Ukraine or Iran, or you are placed in the middle of a modern city like Tokyo, and you are witnessing things that you could not comprehend. Because of that, you would have to describe it in the best way you could, right? Because you could not comprehend digital payment systems. You could not comprehend seeing Japanese people dressed in cosplay. You could not comprehend missiles and helicopters flying overhead. You could not comprehend this stuff. So you would have to describe it in the best way you could, right? And let's just say John tried his best, okay? Now, one of John's visions was that of a swarm of locust-like creatures emerging from the abyss and swarming
Drones.
the sky and darkening the sky. And also, they made a loud noise as they approached. But these
Drones. A buzz.
locusts, they were not natural creatures, okay? Brace yourself, because I'm going to describe what they looked like, okay? Poor John had to see this, okay? This is how he describes them. They're like locusts, but also they're like horses with chest plates of iron, but it's not iron. And also they have faces of humans, but they have the hair of a female, and they have crowns, but also they have the teeth of a lion and the tail of a scorpion that stings. That's what he saw. You've got to feel sorry for poor John at this point, right? That's what he says he saw, okay? Now, this strange vision gets even stranger because John describes these locust-like creatures as only targeting humans. He specifically says that these creatures will not target the land or the grass or the trees. Now, he didn't need to say that, but he specifically mentions that. Now, with that in mind, for a long time, people have speculated that John was seeing military helicopters for the first time. But let me ask you this. Do military helicopters come in the sky like a swarm? Not really. They come in ones or twos or threes at most, right? And do military helicopters come down and sting people? They do not, okay? But we do have a military technology today that does act as a swarm.
What did I fucking say? What I fucking say? We're in the end of days, and AI is the Antichrist, and we all use it every day. We helped fucking train it, not even knowing. Fuck!
And it does only target humans. And when it comes in military formation, we refer to it as a swarm. Yes, I'm talking about military drones, but specifically, I'm talking about autonomous, decentralized, self-driven AI killing machines. That's what they refer to when they refer to a drone swarm army. They have minimal human control, these swarms. And militaries around the world are working on this. And guess what? The US Navy, guess what they call their autonomous drone project. They call it Locust. They call it Locust.
Bro. Bro, they're putting it in our fucking face. It's just, hey, look at me. You ain't gonna believe this. And we don't. Half of you right now are thinking I'm crazy. Shit gets deep, dude.
Now, there's some good news. Because John said that these locust-like creatures, these drone swarm armies, would only target the bad people. They would only torture the bad people. All the good people with the mark of God or chosen by God would be protected. These would be immune from the torture of these locusts. So that's a good thing, right? No. That's actually where things get really scary for you and me. Because I want you to imagine this. Imagine that there were some powerful religious fanatics today that believed it is their duty to fulfill biblical prophecies, that they must do stuff in order to bring about the end of the world. Imagine that. Now, if these types of people did exist, they could see modern technology and drone swarms as a fulfillment of biblical prophecy. And these people could create a database known as the Mark of God. And they could decide who are God's chosen people, who are the good people and who are the bad people. They could decide that.
The mark of the beast.
And then they could release a swarm of autonomous drones to torture all the bad people for 5 months for some reason. That's what they could do. And they would be self-righteous in doing so because they believe that they are doing God's work. Now, luckily, this is an insane idea. This is an insane theory, I understand. And this only really becomes scary if there were groups of powerful people today that believe that they are doing God's work and that it is their duty to fulfill biblical prophecy in some way and accelerate us towards the end of the world. That's the only way that this theory becomes scary. But we don't have these types of people around. These people do not exist, right? Today, I'm going to use a classic example, George Bush. Now, George Bush was a religious fanatic, whether you know this or not. In 2003, in a discussion with the President of France, Jacques Chirac, he discussed how his invasion of Iraq was justified and was doing God's will, because he referred to Iraq and the Middle East as the Gog and Magog. Gog and Magog is the enemy of Israel, or the enemy of God's people. You can find this in the Old Testament, in the Torah, in Ezekiel, and you can find it in the New Testament in Revelation, right? So he believed that his invasion of Iraq and his destabilization of the Middle East was justified and fulfilling biblical prophecy in some way. That's what he believed. So hundreds of thousands of people died because of this religious fanatical idea. But it gets even stranger because he referred to it as the Gog and Magog. This is the enemy of Israel, enemy of God's chosen people. But Israel, the nation of Israel, the country, did not exist until 1948. And they just named themselves Israel and embedded themselves into biblical prophecy. You see where I'm going? They are self-fulfilling prophecies because they just called a country Israel. They just said, this is Israel now. Therefore, all you Christians have to protect us because we are God's chosen people within your Bible. You have to protect.
I'm not 100% convinced that the real Israel isn't in the United States. And, you know, I'm not convinced. I don't know if they didn't just switch everything around on us to confuse us, and that's why we've had so many wars to destroy everything. And then we came over here and killed the Native Americans. Supposedly, that's what they tell us anyway.
Protect us from the Gog and Magog. It's dumb. Now this gets even dumber because you can shift the goalposts. Like in 2003, George Bush referenced the Middle East as being Gog and Magog. But now people are saying Gog and Magog is Russia. So they just shift the enemy to Russia. Russia is now the enemy of God's chosen people that must be attacked in order to fulfill biblical prophecy. And then once Russia's gone, they'll probably say that China is Gog and Magog. They'll keep shifting the goalposts in order to attack their enemies and get the religious fanatics on board. This is the sort of shit that happens constantly, right? Now, George Bush was a retard and he ate this up, right? He ate this up. But today we have Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not a religious guy, really, so he wouldn't be tricked by this stuff, right? Well, see, George Bush was a Christian evangelist, and evangelical Christians, they have a focus on the kind of a post-tribulation rapture theology, end of the world type shit. And this clearly influenced George Bush's geopolitical decisions while he was the president. And Donald Trump has surrounded himself by the same type of people, Christian evangelists and Jewish Zionists, because
One and the same. Both of you are doing the opposite of God's work. A Christian evangelist like this, who is pushing for the end of the world, who is, claiming all these claims that aren't in the Bible. Some of them are. But, they're places that these aren't God's children. I don't know.
because these two groups,
And the Jews, I mean, come on,
they have an alliance because they both believe that Israel, the country of Israel, is kind of a fulfillment of biblical prophecy. The Schofield Bible talks about this, and of course, the Talmud and the Torah talks about this, both simultaneously. And you could imagine that Donald Trump is also influenced by these ideas because he has these people around him, potentially. Now, with that in mind, here's something to consider. See, within the Torah, within the Old Testament, there's this concept of a slave that has done his 6 years of being a slave and he is ready to be released. But if this slave does not want to be released, he wants to continue being a slave to his master, he must pierce his ear publicly for everyone to see as a ritual. So, you could imagine that if Trump was to pierce his ear publicly for everyone to see as a kind of ritual, and then also for some reason that secured his presidency for the next 4 years. Hey, look, that I'm just having fun. We're just having fun, remember? Now, of course, not all Christian evangelists and Jewish people believe that we should be accelerating ourselves through modern technology towards the end of the world. Of course not. Of course not. But there are some people within both groups that do believe this. And that becomes quite scary, especially when you look at what else John saw on the island of Patmos in his visions from Jesus, right? Some of these visions are worse than the locusts that appear from the abyss. For example, just after the locusts appear and torture people for 5 months, 2/3 of the world population die. 2/3 of the world population die. Now that's frightening, right? Especially if there are people believing that they have to make this become a reality. Would you not agree? Okay, but luckily today, we don't have any influential, powerful people that wish to reduce the world population. We don't have that, right? Now, Bill Gates is someone that's very interested in reducing the world population.
See, this is why I thought they were doing with COVID, but I don't think that anymore. I think it'll probably be in nuclear warfare.
He thinks that
I hope not, but I'm just guessing.
there's too many goddamn poor people. That's what he discusses with Jeffrey Epstein within the emails. There's just too many poor people. And in a TED talk he gave a few years ago, he discusses how too many people on this planet will cause environmental issues. Yes, global warming, what is it? Climate change? What's the other words they have for it? I don't know. Like, there's too many people is bad. So to fix this, we need to reduce the world population by, let's say, 2/3. That would fix the issue, right? That would fix the issue, right? You see where I'm going with this? Now, Bill Gates also, he owns a little known company called Microsoft. You might have heard of it, Microsoft. Now, Microsoft has a few patents for biometric payment systems, including ones like there's this one patent that is connecting the body's data to cryptocurrency in some way. Now, this patent is called Patent WO, some people say that stands for World Order, 2020, that was the date it was done, and 666. Yes, this patent is 666, a biometric payment system.
It's literally the mark of the beast. Because you won't be able to eat without it. I mean, you will die. But your reward in heaven is much greater than losing connection with God by taking this.
Thing. Now, you could ignore this. You could just ignore this if it doesn't connect to biblical prophecy anyway. But guess what? It fucking does, okay? It does connect to biblical prophecy. Because poor John had a different vision. John had a vision of the mark of the beast. You might have heard of this. The mark of the beast is 666. And he says that what he witnessed in the last days was that people could not buy or sell anything without the mark of the beast. They could not buy and they could not sell without this mark during the last days. That's what he says. Yo, I'm losing it. I'm losing it. Now, of course, this is just a coincidence, right? That John witnessed the mark of the beast as a payment processor that you need to buy and sell. You could just ignore this. If it wasn't for the fact that your government, my government, governments around the world are all discussing digital IDs and digital payment processes and biometric payment processes. They are all discussing.
I mean, even the dude who claims aliens are fake when he is an alien says that, or is doing this with Neuralink. All right? Elon Tusk. You know what I'm saying?
Discussing rolling these kinds of things out, right? That's what they're doing. And you will not be able to have a job without a government-issued digital ID, especially in the UK. We're one of the first countries to be rolling this out. Some countries have already rolled this out, and it's proven to be a success because these things will be good for you and me because they will reduce fraud. We all want to reduce fraud, right? Because we all want to pay more taxes. Everyone wants to pay more taxes and reduce fraud. We all love doing that. We want to do that more. I want to make sure my government gets every dime. I want to make sure that I don't pay 1 penny under my tax threshold, which I haven't hit for 3 years. Okay, wait. Now, of course, these are not the only visions that John saw on the island of Patmos that could be relevant for us today, potentially, right? He talks about fire from heaven. This could be bombs being dropped or tungsten rods being dropped from Earth's orbit into Earth. And they are...
Look up tungsten rods. They basically, they come at the Earth with so much force because they drop them straight from space. Hold on. Hello. Sorry about that. Was not going to restart this video for them. Just an important phone call. Let's roll.
They're called rods from heaven. Maybe. He talks about a one world government emerging and being led by an antichrist-like figure. Now, as you know,
AI.
It's not just presidents and world leaders talking about these biblical prophecies. We also have technocratic elites like Peter Thiel warning us about a one world government and an antichrist-like figure emerging. He does discuss this. Now, what's strange about Peter Thiel, of course, is he seems to be building such a future, and yet he's warning us about that. So that's a bit strange. Would you not admit? And it goes on. It goes on. He talks about the image of the beast being given breath or being given life. This could be like a robot being given life through artificial intelligence. And he says people will worship the beast. I think people will worship artificial intelligence in the future. I think people will believe that artificial intelligence has consciousness and that people will worship it. I do believe that. You have to remember that even if you do not believe in the Bible or biblical prophecies, that does not mean that these prophecies will not become relevant or scary prospects for your future. Because as long as there are crazy people on this planet today that do believe it is their responsibility to make these prophecies a reality, then they will become a reality. These prophecies will act as hyperstitions that manifest into reality. These will become
And behold, a pale horse, and death followed with him.
Fulfilling prophecies because of the actions of these people making them a reality. And if you do believe in the Bible, then you should know, right? You should know that it is not your responsibility to make these things happen. It's not your responsibility. That's God's responsibility, right?
Amen.
That's God's responsibility. Because Jesus said, no one will know the day, time, or hour of the end. So if you are forcing these things into reality,
Oof, but he did say you would know the season.
you are trying to trick God into making these things happen. You're trying to trick God into making them happen sooner. You're trying to accelerate towards it. That's cheating. You're not supposed to know. You're not supposed to know. So with all that in mind, if this does become a reality, we have an interesting couple of years ahead of us. We have an interesting future ahead of us. The timeline of events is quite scary. This is how it's going to go down. Oh, earlier on I said 2/3 of the world population will die. That's wrong, okay? It goes like this. 1/4 of the world's population will die when the 4 horsemen come. Then the drone swarm locust will torture everyone for 5 months. And then 1/3 of the world's population will die. So just over half of the world's population will die according to these biblical prophecies. So that's interesting. One more thing I just realized. Here's something to consider about the drone swarms. Because it says, John said that these swarms of locusts will torture people for 5 months, but they will not kill people. People will seek death, but they will not find it. They will be tortured by these things. Now that's funny because a few years ago, I wrote an article about the drones flying over Pakistan. You know, the old bomber drones? In Pakistan, people lived under the constant threat of being killed by these drones. They could hear them constantly flying overhead, but they could not see them. And they lived this was a psychological torture for these people, right? So it was a torture living under the threat of drones nonstop. And the reality that we are moving into now, it's not hard to picture a reality where in the future, we constantly have drones surveilling us overhead, maybe weaponized drones, and living under these drones non-stop, especially if you live in a big city. I can imagine this happening. That could be a psychological torture in itself. That's a bit of a stretch. But we're having fun. This whole video is fun. Everyone is having fun. I can't wait. The future is going to be good. In fact, my favorite biblical prophecy is that everything's going to be airy. That's the future that I can't wait for. One more thing. A lot of people have questions for me. I am going to do a Q&A live session, but I'll probably do it on my own.
Holy shit, dude. If that doesn't convince you, we're very, very close. Listen, there's only one way up. There's only one way up. There's only one man who rose from the dead. Just keep that in mind. If you like this video, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, share for more, and I will be back.